Greetings, family. Peace, love, and positive thinking. This is Guru. Thanks for visiting my channel. Today's vlog is about the South African universities who say academic year is in peril. South African protesters throw rocks at security guards at one of the continent's leading universities. Police fire rubber bullets at students on another campus. Vice chancellors warned that students might not be able to finish the academic year if a national dispute over financing higher education is not resolved soon. 22 years after the end of white minority rule, grievances over economic inequities are fueling unrest that has forced the closure of some of South Africa's most prominent universities, which are struggling to cover costs. Opinion has splintered among students, faculty, parents, and the government, which acknowledges funding shortfalls but accuses a radical minority of bringing campuses to a standstill. One target of protesters' condemnation is Adam Habib, Vice Chancellor of the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, also known as WITS. Habib, in turn, has suggested it is ironic that WITS, whose student population is mostly black, could unravel because of protesters who say they are committed to decolonization. He tweeted, quote, "The tragedy of our moment," unquote. The protests are smaller than widely popular demonstrations in 2015 that forced government to suspend university fee increases this year. Demonstrations picked up again after the government said universities can increase fees by up to 8% next year, although it will pay about $180 million to cover the costs of poor students in 2017. WITS and the University of Cape Town hope to resume the academic program on Monday. Some students vehemently oppose the plan. Once a student demand for free education is met, we are willing to go back to class. I mean, we are here because we want to study and get degrees, said Minzwela Nashwanti, a student leader at WITS who wore a jacket with an emblem on the Student Representative Council. Quote, "We've managed to disrupt the system because that's the only language that they understand," he said Friday. Nashwanti was standing outside of the Great Hall, a temple-like building whose tall columns evoke Western academic traditions that irk some South African students who demand a curriculum more focused on African affairs. As he spoke, about 100 members of the WITS teaching staff, many in red and black academic robes, rallied on the Great Hall steps to demand more state funding and an end to violence. Now, family, I want to go over this part one more time, which is that South African students who demand a curriculum more focused on African affairs. What I find interesting is that you have in Africa a continent that is comprised of majority African people, that these people, the natives of the land, have to compromise to get an education about African affairs. It is so sad that in this day that African people have to rely, or tend to rely on Europeans for our history. That makes no sense. There's a big problem with that. It should tell you something. But I digress. Back to this article. Quote, "No cops on campus," unquote, read a placard. About 10 police vehicles were stationed on a nearby campus road and in a parking lot beside the Origin Center, a university museum that explores human evolution. On September 20th, protesters at WITS threw stones at private security guards, smashing glass at the Great Hall entrance. Some guards picked up projectiles and threw them back, contributing to an image of a prestigious center of learning as a chaotic battleground. In a separate incident, the government blamed student activists for the death of a university worker who was hospitalized after being affected by a fire extinguisher sprayed by protesters. Yep, and even in South Africa, as you can hear what I just read, they too blame the victims. So here it is, they're blaming the victim of the death of a university worker who was hospitalized after being affected by a fire extinguisher sprayed by the protesters. Now, it's not the fact that the protesters are protesting against an unjust system of white supremacy. No, it has nothing to do with that. No. It has to do with the protesters. Now, why are those protesters out there protesting, you might ask? Bingo! Back to the origin of the problem, white supremacy. Moving on. WITS is charging between $2,200 and $4,200 for tuition for a first-year undergraduate in 2016. In addition, there is a book, travel, and lodging cost. The government says it will pay tuition for students from households with up to $43,700 in annual income, a measure expected to benefit about 80% of undergraduates. On Wednesday, police fired rubber bullets and arrested 11 students during a protest for free education at Rhodes University in the city of Grahamstown. That prompted the Vice Chancellor, Swezi Mabizela, to say students should not become collateral damage in the dispute over costs. Vice Chancellor Max Price of the University of Cape Town on Friday met with 200 protesters who opposed the university's reopening on Monday. Separately, about 2,000 students and staff members, some holding books, held a silent rally urging the resumption of classes, Price said at the university's website. Quote, "There's a lot of uncertainty. There are a lot of different political positions and views on campus," unquote, said Mahiti Akwani, an associate professor of media studies at WITS. There are also expectations of more violence. WITS Vuvuzela, a university newspaper, advises students on how to respond to stun grenades, rubber bullets, and tear gas in section titled "What to Expect from the Police and How to Stay Safe," unquote. Around the corner from the Great Hall at WITS is a piece of graffiti with instructions. It starts, "How to Make a Petrol Bomb, a Guide for Students." So you see, family, even in South Africa, and I wanted to share this with you because this story is dealing with black people. And if you notice, a lot of my vlogs that I do is mostly on and about black people. The ones that I do on Europeans, i.e. white people or Caucasoids or albinoids, whatever, however you want to refer to them, I am simply pointing out some of the issues that they go through, that they always point their fingers our way. I just like to highlight and expose the ones that they are involved with. So with that said, this article, being that it involves Africans on our mother-father continent, this is important to me, and I hope that it's just as important to you. And I'll know through your comments or your thumbs up or thumbs down. So family, I just want to go over this one part one more time, and that is, it's sad when we have to say things like advises students on how to respond to stun grenades, rubber bullets, and tear gas in a section titled, quote, what to expect from the police and how to stay safe, unquote. You know, this reveals to me this reveals to me that not only is the police, or I should say white people, the same in South Africa as they are here in the United States. And from what we see on our television screens, they're the same no matter where they are on planet Earth. They're the same type of psychotic people, psychopathic people, I should say, where they exhibit a whole lot of violence, but then they turn around and try to exploit ours and say that we're the masters of it when we learned how to be violent through Europeans. And I want to bring this out because this is important, is they're always pointing their fingers at how black people are here in America. But what I would say to them, and what I say to white racists today, is before you go pointing your fingers at us, you might want to look at our past history and see how we were before we came into contact with you, some of you creatures. I think you should check our past history, how we were and what we accomplished before we came into contact with you, before your ancestors turned us into slaves. Because we weren't before. That was what your ancestors did, that you guys never want to acknowledge or take any part of responsibility for. So, family, with that said, I'm going to end this vlog. I hope you like it. If you do, please share, like, and if you haven't already, subscribe. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your support. Peace, love, and positive thinking. This is Guru, and I'm out.